It was probably my third or fourth year here at Grace, and it was time for the annual church picnic. Now, one of the things you need to know about me is that I did not inherit my wedding planning mother's genes for making parties happen. My idea of planning for a party is to let it happen. And for the last 3 or 4 years, the church picnic had happened, and it had happened wonderfully. Such spontaneous, wonderful fun. And so, why would it not happen again this year? I could see no reason. And I was not disappointed. Everybody showed up. We had a wonderful time in Cook Forest. We played games, we talked, we sang, and then it came time for the meal. And we laid out a magnificent feast. There were chips and dips and veggies and beans and salads and desserts. Everything a person could want. Until somebody asked the inevitable question: where's the meat? And we all looked at each other in panic, for no one had thought to bring any meat. And here we are in the middle of the forest with no meat. Well, Elsa came to the rescue because her house was a stone's throw away. She ran up the hill and emptied her refrigerator of all the meat she could find. There were a few hot dogs and some cold cuts. It didn't look like much amongst the group that had gathered. But in the end, it was enough. I think we even sent a couple of hot dogs and some cold cuts back with her. A couple things happened after that, though. We never, ever ran out of meat. And we always had a wonderful story to tell of those days. The day when it was enough. Jesus looks at the crowds. They're like sheep without a shepherd. In desperation, in desolation, alone. Hundreds, thousands. And he turns to Philip and he says, "Hey, Philip, how are we going to feed these folks?" Philip panics. Talk about deer in the headlight look. "What do you mean, Jesus? A whole year's salary won't even begin to cover the cost." It's about this time that Simon Peter shows up. He says, "I got a little boy here, and he's got 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, but what's that amongst so much need?" Jesus takes the bread and breaks it, blesses it, and gives it to the disciples to distribute. And lo and behold, everybody eats their fill, and there are leftovers. 5 loaves, 2 fish, thousands of people. And it was enough. We live in a world today in the midst of chaos and confusion, of great need. Not only among the poor and the hungry, but need that we all are feeling. A need for control, of normalcy, a need of confidence and hope, a need for getting along, a need to end divisions. And yet, we seem to make no progress. We continue to be sick and broken. The problem is that we've relegated God to second, maybe even third or fourth string. We think we've got to fix this. And all of our best efforts seem to keep coming up empty. Half of us want to go back to the way it once was, and half of us want to move forward into a world that we haven't yet encountered. But we're pretty sure we know what it's going to look like if we get our way. And when it doesn't work, we lash out. We lash out at each other. We take our balls and go home. We become angry. We become frustrated. We become aggressive, or we become reclusive. And then we turn on God, because we expect a miracle. Oh God, where are you? What are you up to? Come on, fix this mess. Change this world, but make sure the change is what we want. And God doesn't show up like that. And we're tempted to give up on God. The problem is that God has shown up all the time. He just shows up like a little boy with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. And we so often just miss him, because we're worrying about what once was or what is yet to be, and we forget to look at who is here now and what God is already doing in our midst to end our hungers, to ease our pain, to soothe our anxieties. He comes again and again, like a little boy with 5 loaves and 2 fish. We gather this day around the table for the Holy Eucharist, the meal of Christ's body and blood. It is not only the sacrifice that Christ makes for us in his death, but this meal reminds us that God has promised to continue to provide for us. A piece of bread, a sip of wine does not seem like much, but in the hands of God, it is enough to sustain us and restore our joy. It is a reminder that God continues throughout the week to bless, to restore, to heal us, to feed us with broken bread and poured out wine, with little boys with 5 loaves and 2 fish. What is so little among so much? In God's hands, it is enough. You satisfy the hungry heart with gifts of finest wheat. Come give to us, O saving Lord, the bread of life to eat. As when the shepherd calls his sheep, they know and heed his voice. So when you call your family, Lord, we follow and rejoice. You satisfy the hungry heart with gifts of finest wheat. Come give to us, O saving Lord, the bread of life to eat. You give yourself to us, O Lord, then selfless let us be, to serve each other in your name, in truth and charity. You satisfy the hungry heart with gifts of finest wheat. Come give to us, O saving Lord, the bread of life to eat.